Evening, everyone, because I know where you're at. So thank you for being with us today. My name is Martin Ricardo Cisneros. I am a native from California. My family's from Mexico. And I started my career. I just finished my 25th year in education. So I started as a kindergarten teacher. So I've taught every grade level here in the United States from kinder to 12th grade, except first, second, 7th, 10th, and 11th. I've taught everything else. During that time, I had some wonderful friends of mine who said, Martin, you would make a great principal, a great leader. So I thought, let me try. So I went back to school. I got my master's, I got my credential, and I tried being an administrator. So I was a vice principal for 2 years and the principal for another 2 years. So the total of 4 years. It is a very difficult job. So I salute anybody who wants to be a principal. Where I really found my spot was coordinating new experiences, innovative experiences for students and for teachers as well. So at that point, I decided to become the director of an after-school program for a school district. And then because I love technology, technology has always been a part of me. If you haven't figured it out, if you're looking behind me, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So when I was a kid, I was like, oh, wow, I can't wait to grow up and do all this stuff. But in a way, I did that because.
Hello, sir. This is Shruti. I'm a 8th grade student. Now I'm going to ask you a question. May I ask?
Yes, ma'am.
We would wonder if you could explain about the latest current trends, teaching trends.
Yes. So, because everywhere in the globe, we just went through COVID. So I always tell people I became a technology teacher back in 1998. So that was many, many years ago, right? I laugh now because I tell people I started teaching in the late 1900s. I'm that old. So one of the things that I always wanted was teachers to learn how to use technology not because of just using technology, but it's the promise that technology means to any of our students. So I'm going to give you an example. I have personally 4 kids. I have a 26-year-old, a 24, 20, and a 10-year-old that's behind that door over there. My 10-year-old is on the spectrum. He has autism. So the way he learns, the way his brain learns is different than his older brothers and sisters. But when he was diagnosed at 2.5 years old by our doctors here, they said, Martin, it's going to take some time, but don't expect too much from your child because he's going to learn differently. So I took that on as challenge accepted. Let's find out how he learns. Let's find out how he could learn. So this is where technology came in. As the rest of his classmates in school were having a difficult time, I bought him an iPad. I researched certain programs that helped them with just vocabulary, with just sounds. Let's just start off with sounds. And then I went back to my original training as how do you build language in a child? And I connected those two. And now my child cannot stop talking, and himself, he loves to learn. He loves to play. So it's about how do you as a teacher build curiosity? So when you look at the trends, it happened to a lot of us because back in 2019, you still had a few teachers like, I'll try this tool. The other stuff is a little bit too difficult. So what COVID brought all of us was we were pushed into using a lot of technology, but that also became a problem, right? It's like if you're ever hungry and you go into your favorite market and you want to eat everything because everything sounds good. So it's the same way. A lot of my teachers were overwhelmed because, everybody was saying, you should try this tool, you should try this tool. And it became overwhelming. But over the past 2.5 years, what we have learned is what are the skill sets, right? What are the skill sets? So when we're looking at trend, we're trying to look at what are the tools that build agency. So let me explain about agency. Agency is when you teach a child or a person how to learn by themselves, right? Because like everywhere in the world, sometimes you have great teachers. You're like, oh my gosh, I wish you were my teacher for life. And then sometimes you're like, yeah, it's okay. And for me, my best thing was I never knew, no matter what grade level I taught, and even I do this with teachers, is you never know who's coming next. So why not learn how to learn on your own? So a lot of the trends that we're seeing now is how do we take these very complex, ideas and break them down. So that's one, right? Taking how do we do that? The other portion is allowing students to show us what they know by any means necessary. I grew up, I also taught in a system where 95% of the time, the way you would show your knowledge to the teacher or to the instructor was by writing. You had to write. And if you were like me growing up, I was a horrible writer. I am so glad somebody invented this because without this, I am a horrible writer. If you would just, if this was to go away and I was to write you a letter, you would think, oh, this poor man has a fifth grade, knowledge because my writing is horrible. But one of the things that we're learning is how do we chunk information? So what you're seeing a lot here is, and globally as well, I came back from ISTE, which ISTE is one of the biggest EdTech conferences in the world, and it was held in Louisiana earlier this month. And what I'm finding out is everyone, a lot of folks in higher education, secondary school, elementary, primary, we're moving towards how do you certificate knowledge? So think about it this way, right? Here in where I live is we have all these different standards that we have to go throughout the year. Any teacher can tell you, you can never get through all of them in 1 year. That's just impossible. So as a teacher, you have to figure out who's in front of you, figure out who your kids are, what their levels are, and then figure out, how can I move each and every one of them up at least 2 years? And that is very, very difficult to do manually. What we're seeing now is we're seeing programs that will do that for you, that will say, hey, Martin, if you want to move students up, they should learn how to do these 4 things. And then what we're seeing here is we tell the students, hey, if you want to move up here, here are the 4 activities. In the activities, you have math, you have social studies, you have history. So in other words, instead of studying the topics differently, we're combining them. So if you have heard of project-based learning, that is very, very huge. But how do you systemize that? If you heard of design thinking, that is now becoming more and more prevalent throughout. But what we're seeing now is we're now seeing tools that are helping teachers and students and even parents like myself is how do you do that at home? Because one of the things that we saw during COVID is that many people have now decided to teach their own kids at home or supplement. So we call that micro learning here. So micro credentials, both for adults and for students. If you look at the big companies, whether it's Adobe, whether it's Google, they're now doing certifications for students because they understand. Here in America, I can tell you, before it's like you need to go to college. After college, you're going to get a good job and you're going to be able to sustain your family and so forth. Well, that has changed quite a bit. And now it's like, what skill sets do you have? Because it's not just in the US, it's now global. My kids are not competing with the kids next door or in the next town. My kids are not competing globally. And that's what we all have to think about is how do we help our students, create agency so they can learn on themselves because, Harry and myself are going to be here only for a short amount of time. And then both him and I are going to go, right? So the question is, how do you guys become those self-motivated learners? What are the tools? What does that look like on a daily basis? So now I always tell my teachers, the first thing you should do every year is teach your students how you learn because you're supposed to be the role model, right? You're supposed to learn every day. And I just had a conference this past weekend and I told principals, I told superintendents, these are people who lead the schools. And I walked up to them and like say, hey, how do you learn today? because there's so much stuff going on. How do you learn? And the looks that I got, some of them were like, finally someone asked me the right questions. And other people were scared because that's
It's great that that page is Sailaram. My hobbies are playing games and watching TV. My future ambition is to become an English teacher. Can I pose you a question, sir?
yes, sir.
Would you mind sharing some of the free tools for correction?
So you all see my screen right now? Awesome. All right. So self-correction, I have tons, but let me roll down. So I'm gonna go down to, here we go. Yes, this is the one that I call the tools. So let me, if you're following along, this on the slide deck that I gave you, this is on slide number 81, if you want to follow along. But I'm just going to show you, and you can always go back and play with it. Yeah, it's a very long slide deck. I put a bunch of resources in here for you. So I do this thing with everyone now. And, you know, like I said, I started off in kindergarten. So I taught kids how to read, just period. But today I teach teachers, I teach principals, I teach parents, I teach students, I teach everybody. How do you learn how to read the internet? Because for the first time in our global history, when we went through COVID and we went through lockdown the past 2 years, a lot of our new kids, they had to learn to read by the internet or by some other form. So this is, I'm going to take you through this small little spiel, and here are just some resources that I picked up along the way that make my life a lot easier. So the first one is this one called Mercury Reader. And by the way, I'm using Google Chrome as the web browser, and I use their free tools in order to do this. So I use this at their extension. So I'm going to give you an example. So sometimes, you know, I'm going out, and as an educator, I try to find some really good resources for my students. So in here, it talks about how human intelligence and artificial intelligence there are now companies merging this together so we can create better products. Well, if I'm teaching this in the classroom, the first thing you're going to think of is like, oh, look at that commercial. Oh, what? Oh, Top Business Consulting. Oh, download our toy. In other words, kids' eyes are like any other kid throughout the world. They're going to be distracted, right? So the first tool that I love to share is this one called Mercury Reader. And what Mercury Reader does, it does a variety of different things. So when you install it, you get this little rocket at the way top of your web browser. So here's my article. And when I click on this rocket, look at what it does. It eliminates all the advertisements. Number two, it switches the colors. So what are you seeing now? You're seeing pretty much a black page with the white. You know what that does, Harry? I don't know about you. You look pretty young yourself right now, Harry, but my eyes, I have these things everywhere now because after being on the computer for a few hours, my eyes start to hurt and I can't see. So what my optometrist, my eye doctor said, you know, a few years ago, about a decade ago, he goes, if you want to save your eyes because you're going to be in front of the screen for so long, he goes, learn how to switch the colors, because what this does, this is less strain on your eyes. So you're just seeing the white part. So that's number one. Number two, it takes away the distractions. What people don't understand is that you can change the font type. And I'm on that age that I want everything large. I want to be able to see clearly. But also this is, I didn't know that, and I learned this through the Stanford university, that depending on the font that you're looking at, certain fonts are easier to read when you're reading online versus when you're reading in a textbook, right? So this allows you to change that. Also, you can go from white to dark. The reason, once again, I tell you I like to use dark is because it saves my eyes from straining. The other thing that they don't mention is that this tool developed a font that if you have dyslexic readers, this will help them read a lot faster and a lot better. So this is my first tool, number one. It's called Mercury Reader. And once again, the reason why I enjoy this tool is because it does all those variety of different things, right? So that's tool number one. Tool number two is this one called crafty184.com. So what Crafty does is, as an educator, sometimes I don't know, like, say for example, I went out to the internet, I found this, and this is a great article, it has great information, but I don't know whether or not my students can understand it, right? So here in the US, when I was teaching, let's say 6th grade, I don't know whether or not. So what Crafty Level allows me to do, let's see if I can click on Crafty Level. And I'm showing you exactly how do I install this. So in my presentation, when you click on Crafty Level, it's going to take you to this website. They have other tools here, but I'm going to this one called Crafty Level. I'm going to click on it. It's going to take me to the Chrome Web Store, and then I'm going to add to Chrome. Once I add to it, I'm going to say, yes, do you want to add the extension? I'm going to say, yes, I do. And then it's now going to live up here. So there it is, Crafty Level. So now I see it up here. Okay. So now, and that's how you install all these tools that I'm talking to you about today. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh this article. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I am just going to highlight this first paragraph. If I highlight this first paragraph and click on here on Crafty Level, and it automatically, I don't know if you guys can see, it's very small. So let me see if I can take a picture of it. So what it's telling me is that this is written at a 9th grade 7th level, 9th grade 7th month, right? And I'm going to say, wow, that's pretty high for my 6th graders. I might have some 6th graders that can read this, but my students who are struggling with reading, they might have a hard time with this, right? So Crafty Level is used to figure out how high the reading level is. So then I come in here because I am teaching you how to read the internet. I go into these wonderful other tools that allow me to summarize whatever it is that I'm reading, right? So for example, if I go back out here again, there's this wonderful tool called Resumer. Oh, and I do have it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that article. Oh, there it is. It's up here. So what Resumer does is it takes all this information, and I am just going to go ahead and click on the Resumer. And what it does, it takes that article and it chunks it down, right? It shortens it for me. So now this is pretty good. So I'm going to click on continue on Resumer, because if you've been teaching for a while, or you as a student, you always know that sometimes you're reading at level, sometimes you're below, sometimes you're high. What I love about Resumer is that I can come in here and I can paraphrase it, I can rewrite it, I can translate it. So if I'm reading stuff from another country that I don't know, I can do that. I can turn this into a PDF, into a Google Doc, whatever it might be. I can also go here and click on where it says manual. And what I love about manual is that it tells me, Martin, this article has 1,054 words. And with the slider, you can chunk that information down to a paragraph. Now, I want you to think about that, right? Because you know how sometimes we have to read I have a friend who is always sending me these, oh, look at this nanotechnology, look at, and they're like pages and pages. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Christina, that's a lot of them. I don't have that much time. Can you read it for me? Can you tell me? And sometimes she does, but other times she doesn't have time. So what I do is I come here to Resumer, and I take that big old, it could be a PDF, it could be a big old long old article, and I can chunk it. And right here, as you see on the top, I can change how much if I want to learn a little bit more, a little bit more. So this is a great tool to go through all the information you're going through and chunk it down so you have time. Because I'll tell you how I use it. Remember how I told you how I get to learn? If I'm really interested in something, the first thing that I do is I go to Google Alerts. I'm going to show you. You guys, Harry, have you played with Google Alerts?
Oh, no, these kids don't have any idea about that.
Okay, so look at this. And it's basically google.com/alerts. But here's what I like, right? So I'm going to go in here, and I have a friend who's just telling me, Martin, you should learn about nanotechnology. It's going to be the best next thing. So I was like, okay, I don't know anything about nanotechnology at this point. So I come here to Google Alerts and I type in nanotechnology. And then I hit return. Not working today. Let me try this one more time. Oh, there we go. Nanotechnology. So what this does, it uses the whole internet and goes and finds articles. But right now I don't have time because I'm presenting with you, but later on I want to learn. So what I do is I go here to it, it shows options. And it tells me, Martin, how often do you want to know about nanotechnology? As it happens, once a day, or just give me a summary once a week. So I'm gonna say, you know what? I don't want to read this once a day. So give this to me once a week. This is great. From the sources, do you want news, blogs, web, video, books, discussions, finance? I go, give me I'm a video person, so give me videos as well. So you get to choose how. In other words, you're making Google work for you. Google now becomes your assistant, right? Which is great. And then now what region, right? I can say any region. You can choose the world if you like, right? Right now, just because I want to know, what's happening with ours, I'm going to put US, but you can choose any region. You can choose the world if you like. And then how many results? I'm going to say only show me the best results, because once again, I don't have that much time. Just give me the top stuff that you're learning, Google. And it says, where do you want me to deliver it to? So then right here, you put your email. And then next thing you know is you click on create alert, put your hands back and let Google work for you. So what happens next is once a week, I'm now going to get an email from Google and says, Martin, here are the top videos, here are the top articles, here are the top news about whatever subject. And if you're seeing here on mine, right, I put nanotechnology, but what else did I put? I put my son's name, I put my daughter's name, I put where I work, I put, some of the stuff that I'm interested in learning more about autism because of my child. So whatever it is that you want to learn about, you don't have to do it for yourself anymore. Allow Google to do it for you. Right? So with that being said, so going back, right? So I love the summarize. Once I summarize it, if I'm interested, then I do the whole Google Alerts deal, which I love. But the other thing that I really enjoy about Resumer is the text analysis. So what Resumer will do, it'll go through all of the article. And this is what I love. It's like you have your own personal teacher. It goes and it highlights the most important parts of that article. So in other words, you don't have to read the whole article. You can go to Resumer and just click on text analysis, and it'll highlight just the most important parts of that article. Come on, right? This is like having your personal tutor right beside you at all times. So that is my, and we're halfway done, but I do want to show you two other ones that I think will help you with going through the future and learning. This is another one that's from Microsoft, the company, and this one's called Immersive Reader. So what I love about Immersive Reader is it does a variety of what many tools do in one. So the best way I can tell folks is I'm going to show you what it does. So in here, right, I can highlight this article again, and I'm just going to highlight it to here. And once you install it, you can do a right click, and then you'll see this, help me read this. I'm going to click on the help me read this. And then Microsoft takes over. And here's what I like. What it'll do is it can read back to me. And let me see if I'm sharing my sound with you. try that now. Wait. Oh no, I'm gonna have to restart it. So I'm not gonna do that now. I have a new computer, so I haven't installed a lot of stuff. But what are you gonna see it do? And I'll put the volume higher so maybe you can hear it through my microphone. So you see how I clicked on that word? It automatically gives me a picture of what that word represents. And if I click on the little speaker,
predictions.
were you able to hear that? Yeah. So now, right, if you want to learn, and this is just English, there's other languages, by the way. So if you want to learn English, you want to learn any other language, now you can do this to any web page that's online. Pretty slick, right? So I can go in here and then I might say, I'm going to highlight this part, hit play.
I recently shared my top predictions for the retail industry in 2019, one of which is that algorithms will take control.
So that is pretty darn good. And if I don't know a word, once again, I just click on the word and I can re-listen to it.
Retail, retail.
Or I can go down here to the voice setting and look at this. If it's too fast for you, you can make it like a turtle and slow it down, right? Or if you're like, no, here's what, when I talk about agency in the beginning, each one of us is learners, right? Harry and I just have a few more years above all of you, but we're always learners. And what I love about this is that, like right now, when I learn, like in the, I like not to waste time, by the way. I'm always learning. So I have these big guys that I connect with me. So when I'm washing the dishes, I'm outside washing my car or doing whatever chores, I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm always listening to other people teaching me something, right? Because in my head is, I get to rest when I go to sleep. and I try, you know, and that's the other important thing. Get your sleep in, drink enough water, because if we want to be modern learners, our bodies need to be healthy as well. Do some stretching. That's a whole different other talk that I do, but it's taking care of your body, right? But what I like about this is I can slow it down or speed it up. When I listen to podcasts, I go this way. I listen to podcasts at 1.5 faster than normal speeds. Why? Because I can understand it, and 2, because I can get through content a lot faster. So these are just tricks about just modern learning right now, right? So, but Immersive Reader has more tricks under its sleeve. I can go up here and under text preferences, right? Because once again, I like seeing stuff larger, so I can move the font either larger or smaller. I can increase the spacing if I want. I can choose different types of font that's easier for me to read. I like Calibri. And look at this, we also have dark mode, which I already told you that I enjoy. And there's you know, other formatting as well. The other thing that I really enjoy about Immersive Reader is the grammar option. So if you're learning English, right, and you want to say, okay, in this article, can you show me all the nouns? Look at that, right? It highlights that. If I want to learn all the verbs, it highlights that, all the adjectives, right? All the adverbs. Anyways, you get where I'm going with this. Or you can break it down by syllables. Like, how do you say this word? Okay, so if I hit the syllables here, if I'm looking at predictions, right? And I hit the syllables here, it says, oh, it breaks it up into 3 different parts. Predictions.
We heard that there are many latest trends in teaching. Could you please tell us some about nano learning?
Yeah, so something similar to what I talked about before is how do we chunk information, right? Or how do we put a lot of what we want you to learn, whether it's the standards, whether it's the units. And 2 things that pop in my head, 2 resources that I'm going to give you. And Harry, I can send this to you later. One of them is called Edu Protocols. And Edu Protocols, it's a system of how to learn. I'm going to give you an example. So let's just say, you know, let's just say, you know, teacher Harry is giving you a new topic. So an Edu protocol would be is after we listen to Harry for about 20 minutes, we all get on a slide deck. We're all sharing the same Google slide deck, and we choose one word and we go find a picture that represents what we learned. because what we're doing is we're summarizing information. We're trying to focus on what it is. And then Harry, as a teacher, he gets to go through all his list of students all in one spot to figure out, are they getting the information or are they not? That's one. So that's Edu Protocols, right? And there's a bunch of small little systems. It's great for the teacher because I call this you teach better and work less, which every teacher likes. But for the student, it also gives you voice and choice. That means that you get to tell your teacher what you know by text, creating a movie, creating an animation, telling a story, by voice, by doing video. So in other words, the whole component is how do we as teachers find out what you know about the topic besides writing? And as a teacher, how do you do this? This is also part of assessment, by the way, because what you're doing is, as a teacher, is you're not waiting until the end of the week. You're not waiting until end of the month to find out whether or not your students learn, because by that time it's too late, right? It's too late. And the best way I tell people this is, when I was younger, I used to play baseball, right? I love baseball. And I became a pitcher. So I had a pitching coach. And every time I would grab the ball and learn how to throw, my coach would stop me right there and says, Martin, look, this is how you handle, I'm sorry, I have an orange here just so I can show you. And I remember how I used to hold the ball like this, right? Because some friend of mine when I was younger showed me if you throw the ball like this, you can curve it. And he's like, you're holding the ball wrong. Your arm is good. He goes, but you should hold it like this. So right then and there, he gave me feedback. And what did I do? I tried to throw the ball again, and it worked. It's the same thing with teachers and students. Is you don't wait. Like if the coach would just see me pitch and then tell me what I did wrong after the game, it's too late. It's better if you know right then and there. So when we think about teaching and learning, is what are some ways that students can show their teachers how they know? But as a teacher, I have to give you permission, right? I have to give you the environment, the tools in order for you to do that. So that's the short version of it. Yeah, it's something that more and more schools are now trying on. I work with a school here in San Diego, California called Design 39. And what this school decided to do was, it's part of a regular school system, not private, not charter or anything, so regular. But the leaders had the opportunity to build a brand new school. Before they do that, before they started construction, they said, wait a minute, let's rethink about what does schooling mean today? Because what schooling meant for us when we were kids is a lot different than what schooling should mean for kids today. And what they ended up doing was they looked at the school year, and they looked at the school day, and they figured out what do we need and what we don't need. So what they ended up doing was they built a school around project-based learning, where instead of just, going to school, learning about math, learning about, there's like, what concepts do we want to learn? And a lot of the parents also wanted buy-in. So they started to say, what would be great if we learn skill sets? Along the way, we'll learn the other stuff about school. So a lot of it, if you look, a great example of that, Google has this program called Applied Sciences, Applied Skill Sets. And I think Adobe has it, Apple has it now as well. But what I love about these are courses that you can take free online. And you learn a skill set by doing projects, doing small projects. That at the end, it's similar tied to micro learning, where you do a project, and when you finish the project, it says you have learned these 4 or 5 skills, right? That is now approved. Now you can take that certificate, whatever that certificate is, and you can go to the next school. If you are, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you can now take the certificate to your employer and say, hey, I have this skill set, right? So when we're thinking about that, we are now moving more and more into that. We are now having international schools pop up, where that's all they're doing is what are the concepts that you want to learn. And then what they do is they have artificial intelligence software that says, okay, here are the the concepts in math, here are the concepts in communications, here are the concepts in language, here are the concepts in so in other words, it brings this all together. And we talked about this earlier about using machine learning, artificial intelligence. So that nanotechnology that we talk about is not just the gadgets that we have, it's also about how we process information. And that is going to be very, very key throughout the world because, even the international schools that we have going on, I visited one earlier in the summer, and they are already saying, Martin, this was a great idea 20 years ago. But because of the technology now is, and the way, just so you know, the way it would work, me as a parent, I would take my child, they would test him or her, and they would say, what do you want to learn? Okay, I want to learn about, the medical field. I want to learn how to enhance farming. They're like, great. What do you like to do? Oh, I love to play with technology. Great. We're going to show you coding by using a drone to go over fields we can see whether they're in drought or whether they need more water, and we're going to figure out that system. And they learn all that skill set on that particular project. So they might not learn it in San Francisco, but we might have a school in San Diego that can do that. So I send my kid to San Diego. That was 20 years ago with the international schools. Now what they're saying is, Martin, now it's like we don't need to send them anywhere. We can actually do that locally here or anywhere in the world now. We can set up shop anywhere in the world. So I'm hoping you have heard of the metaverse. And that is going to be the next revolution in not just around the world, but in education as well. I'm fortunate enough here that I'm 20 minutes away from Apple. I'm 20 minutes away from the big companies. And when they have their showcases, I love going to their showcases because these are world-renowned scientists, and right next to them is a kid in high school. they're both showcasing something for the world. So that's what makes my heart really, really happy, because we have students and they're not just from America, they're from around the world that come over. And for me, the metaverse is going to be something that I think is going to change the way we look at education, the way we look at concepts, because I'm just starting to work with data personally, and the information and the value that brings. But getting back to your questions about the concepts, it's going to be a game changer. If you have seen the movie Ready Player One, you get a glimpse. It's about right now we're putting on this headset and we go into a virtual world. But the way I see it is like the other day, I had a fight with my vacuum cleaner because something got stuck and I had to take it apart, and it's a newer vacuum cleaner, so I didn't understand it. But I know I have friends who are working in major industry that what they do is they grab their glasses, and inside they already have the intelligence. So when they're looking at something, it breaks it apart and it tells you, oh, this is what you need to learn. Oh, you don't know what that is? Great. I'm going to show you step by step how to do it. So imagine that, right? Imagine you grab your glasses, you put it on, and you want to learn how to fix something. Or you put your glasses on and you look at a dying plant in your home and you're like, I wonder what this plant needs. And it'll take you through the process. Tell me about the soil it has. How often do you water it? Does it get sunlight? Do you feed it any nutrients? Oh, by the way, if you're eating that orange, don't throw away the peel. Grab the peels, grind it, and put it around the plant. And then, anyways, you see where I'm going with it, right? So if you watch TikTok or any other thing, imagine getting the good information, putting your glasses or whatever. It might not be your glasses. It might be contacts. I don't know, right? But we're living in very exciting times, and I cannot wait for the next iteration. Once again, I feel like I'm a kindergartner myself.
What are the current trends in curriculum?
Once again, I'm heading back to using artificial intelligence to help the teacher figure out what needs to be taught. So here in America, we have it's like a going back and forth, because what COVID taught us is that a lot of teachers thought we had personalized learning in our classrooms, but we didn't. Personalized learning is knowing what you, the student, can know, what skill sets you have, and then finding out a way to improve on that. But that means that every kid, every child, every student needs their own specialized teacher. And I can tell you this from teaching for 25 years, that is very difficult to do. The promise, once again, I always go back to the promise of technology. There are now tools being developed where the tool can help the teacher provide the right curriculum for that student. So what does the future look like? The future looks like you can be sitting here like we are today with Teacher Harry being our leader, but each and every one of us has a different curriculum. We're all working on the same topic, but we're all approaching that a different way. The best way I tell folks about this is if you haven't learned about design thinking, that's something you might want to research. But design thinking is learning how to solve real world problems with different points of views, with different resources, right? And what I love about that is because this process begins and ends with empathy. That means you learn as much as you can about the people that is affected by this problem or this subject, whatever it is, and you work towards your solution with them in mind. And I cannot ever, if you look here at Silicon Valley, where all the big technology, everybody uses it. This is how they improve their products, right? And when we're looking at some of the stuff that we're going through right now, right? I like to think about COVID because that's in everybody's forefront. We did something we never did before in history, where we got scientists from all over the world. We had this one problem, and we had different scientists from different methods look at this problem differently, right? From their point of view. We had brain scientists, we had heart scientists, we had lung scientists, we had all respiratory, child development, everything. And when I think about that, is moving forward in a world where, things are not going to slow down, they're going to constantly get faster, right? This is where I think artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, machine learning is really going to help us in education. Because like I said, I love what I do. I have 25 years under my belt, but I can still tell you I have another 10 lifetimes to learn about how to become a better teacher. And for me, I like to say, bring it. Right? Let's try out these new tools. And the best thing the best advice I can offer each and every one of you is, like, how when you were a kid, or you still might be, and your parents bring you a plate, and you're like, I don't really like that. You might not like it right now, but later on you might enjoy it. But my whole thing about with tools and processes and learning is try out stuff, right? Because you never know what you're going to enjoy. And that's the beauty about personal learning, is the more you learn, the more opportunities open up for you. And when I was a kid, by the way, I wanted to be an X-wing fighter pilot, Star Wars, the ships, right? I didn't want to be a businessman. I didn't want to be a teacher. But what I tell people now is the jobs that I've had, half the jobs were created along the way. They didn't exist when I was growing up. And a lot of that's going to happen to you as you continue. So it's not don't think about what exists. Try to think about what wicked problem do you want to solve when you grow up, and then find those technologies and solutions that will help you to get there.